I was actually looking at a number of videos, and that was actually the best one. At least he made more sense to me than the other ones. They use language and technical terms that I don't really understand. But what causes the building to collapse? Stress, right? All that movement just caused so much stress on the materials that you're using, they just break. They just can't take it. Something has to happen, and usually it just breaks and falls to the ground. So civil engineers, obviously, this kid talks about, they must find better, obviously you need the best building materials that you could find, but also the technique and the way they put the buildings together, they must eliminate all of that extra stress that you put on the buildings, and so they don't crash and fall. That's the best image I could think of, just this idea of stress in the buildings, but then bringing it to stress on people. That the number one cause of anxiety in the world, or you'd say in our society, is stress. We stress over everything you can think of. Finance is probably the first thing that comes up, right? Nothing causes more stress than realizing I want to buy this or I need that, and I don't have the finances to do it. I don't have the right job to do it. You name it. It just goes on and on and on and on. But there's so many pressures that we have that come on us from outside, but also from within. Just as those buildings, something's bound to happen, right? Something's bound to break. Something's bound to explode. So today, when we get into the story, I think we see some of these things happen to Jacob. And it's really important what we see, how God enters the picture in this. So moving forward, we're first talk about the context of the story that we're getting into today. The promises God made Abraham underlay all of what's happened in Genesis. I'm going to say that every time that we come together. From Genesis 12, even on into the rest of the Old Testament, we are looking at God's promises to Abraham. What he's going to do for him and his family is the base, the foundation of what goes on in the Old Testament. This is Genesis 22, 15 through 18. Then the angel of the Lord called Abraham a second time from heaven and said, by myself I have sworn, this is the Lord's declaration, because you have done this thing and not withheld your only son. This is right after Abraham almost sacrificed Isaac when God told him to do it. And God saw that Abraham was obedient. He was about to, and he stopped him. Now God's saying, since that you've done this for me, that you've listened to my voice, he says, I will indeed bless you and make your offspring as numerous as the stars of the sky and the sand on the seashore. Your offspring will possess the gates of their enemies, and all the nations of the earth will be blessed by your offspring, because you have obeyed my command. So listen to what God promises. You're going to be blessed. You're going to live in this land that I'm promising you. You're going to be as numerous as the stars of heaven. And not even that, in your descendant, all the nations of the earth will be blessed. It's these promises that underlay what all of Genesis, especially as we get into today's story. The question early on is who is Abraham's descendant? Who's his heir? Maybe God makes it clear that Isaac is Abraham's chosen descendant. And all the other sons Abraham had, they're not his heir. Only Isaac is. This is Genesis 25, 5 through 6. Abraham gave everything he owned to Isaac, but Abraham gave gifts to the sons of his concubines, and while he was still alive, he sent them eastward, away from his son, Isaac, to the land of the east. This is Genesis 26, 1 through 4. It says, there was another famine in the land in addition to the one that occurred in Abraham's time. And Isaac went to Abimelech, king of the Philistines, at Gerar. The Lord appeared to him and said, do not go down to Egypt. Live in the land that I tell you about. Stay in this land as an alien, and I will be with you and bless you. for I will give you all these lands to you and your offspring, and I'll confirm the oath that I swore to your father Abraham. I will make your offspring as numerous as the stars of the sky. I will give your offspring all these lands, and all the nations of the earth will be blessed by your offspring. So Isaac is chosen. It's very clear that he's got the same promises that God gave to Abraham. Now, so who's going to be the heir of Isaac is the question. He had twins, Esau and Jacob. Esau is the oldest, so certainly he should be heir to God's promises, right? He's the oldest. He's the heir. This normally goes to the firstborn. No. Listen to this. This is Romans 10 through 16. But Rebekah conceived children through one man, our father Isaac. For though her sons had not been born yet or done anything good or bad, so that God's purpose according to his election might stand, not from works, but from the one who calls, she was told, the older will serve the younger. As it is written, I have loved Jacob, but I have hated Esau. What should we say then? Is there injustice with God? Absolutely not. For he tells Moses, I will show mercy to whom I will show mercy, and I will have compassion on whom I will have compassion. So then, it does not depend on human will or effort, but on God who shows mercy. So Jacob is Isaac's heir. Two sons, but only one heir. Sounds a little difficult, right? But why did God do this? We're not told. It just says God chose Jacob over Esau, so that God's purpose according to election might stand. That God's purpose according to his choice would stand. That he has the power to do so. Is Jacob better than Esau? No. It says God shows mercy on whom he pleases. Jacob did not earn God's favor, but God favored Jacob because of his own pleasure. So in Genesis, we are following God's promises. First Abraham, then Isaac, and now Jacob. So we see that Jacob and Esau have been at one another from the womb. That, if you remember the episode, Rebecca is pregnant and she has something going on in her stomach. There's fighting going on. So if this is what's going on now, what's going to become of these two is what she says. And not even that, when Esau was born, Jacob had a hold of Esau's heel. So that's why he was named Jacob. Jacob means one who supplants, or one who replaces. How do you like that for a name? One who replaces. So they're at it from the womb. When they're born, Jacob's holding on to Esau's heel. And then later on in their lives, Esau sells his birthright to Jacob for a bowl of stew. He was so hungry, he came out of the field that he's like, Jacob's like, all right, give me your birthright. I'll be treated as the oldest, and then you can have some of the stew. And Esau did it. This is gonna haunt Esau for the rest of his life. Lastly, we saw last week that Jacob stole the blessing from Esau. Isaac, their father, was meaning to bless Esau, but Jacob deceived his father. If you remember, and he steals the blessing. And we see that Jacob only has one blessing. He's only going to give it once, so he's not going to take it back. So to this point, Jacob has, so far, he's a conniver. He conspires. Not even that, he's a liar, a deceiver. He deceives his own father. But who's really in control? Did Jacob need to steal the blessing? God already chose him. Think about that. He had lack of faith in what God had already said. That he thought he needed to steal the blessing when he really didn't. God had already chosen him. So we must know that God is the one who's really in control of this. God is the one who chose Isaac over Ishmael. God chose Jacob over Esau. So we must know under all of this that God is the one who's leading everything forward. He's the one who's saying, He's the one who's controlling the narrative. So today we have Jacob. He's leaving his hometown. He's leaving his land for Haran. And both reasons are because of Esau. First, because we heard what we heard last week, Jacob stole the blessing from Esau, and so he wants to kill him as soon as their father dies. He doesn't want to upset his dad, so he'll wait till his dad dies, then he's going to kill his brother. Imagine that. Knowing someone so close, your brother, wanting to kill you. The second reason is indirectly, but it's related to Esau. We saw last week, Isaac and Rebekah cannot stand Esau's wives. His two Hittite wives he marries from the land of Canaan, and they're just making their lives hell. So Jacob he's leaving to find a bride for himself from his mother's family in Haran. It's like, there's no way you're marrying any of these girls here. I'm sending you back home, and you can marry from my family. Can you pull up the map? Here's a map. So down here in the bottom left, Beersheba, that's where Jacob is leaving from. He's going to go all the way up there to the top right corner to Haran to find himself a bride. It's about 500 miles on foot. If you travel every day, you might say 20 miles a day, it would still take you nearly a full month to get there. So it's more likely it took at least a couple months just to make that trip. I can't even walk 5 miles, a little over 500. It's a big journey. So what we have is he's got a big journey before him. Not even that, he's an outcast. He's got to leave. Leave or die. The amazing thing about this, he's probably about 70 years old at this time. Can you believe that? I think we always get a picture of him being a young man in his prime. No, he's getting old. The text doesn't really tell us what Jacob's thoughts are. But what does he have before him? Back home, the only land he knows, the only family he knows, he's in danger. He's got to leave. He has to leave everything he knows. Family. Home. And he's got an unknown future before him. Who knows if he will make it back? So again, what are his thoughts? Is he afraid? One of the most difficult parts of my life was leaving for college. Like, I was excited for it, but at the same time, you come to the realization, everything that I've known up to this point, I'm leaving. That was when I was 18. I can imagine when I'm 70. 7 years of life in that land, and he's got to pick up and leave. So life will no longer be the same for Jacob. But he has no choice. Stay, probably going to die. Go and also find a bride for yourself. We have to realize most people, even today, but most people in the ancient world, they didn't travel too far from the place that they were born. The vast majority of them, I can't remember the number, didn't go more than like 5 or 10 miles away from the place that they were born until they died. That's it. That was your place. You didn't go beyond that. It's dangerous to go beyond that, actually. But Jacob is expected to walk 500 miles to a place he doesn't know, to find a family he's never seen. No zip codes, no signs. You don't know what kind of people you're going to run into. Let me put it this way. How many of you guys would drive through Mexico or walk through Mexico at night? The ancient world always had problems with raiders. Always along the roads, there was always pirates ready to just take whatever you had. It's only like in the big empires where they finally bring peace within their land, on the roads and everything, but they didn't have that back then. It's anarchy. You don't know what you're going to run into. So Jacob's future is dark. He does not know. Who knows what's going to happen to him? So that's where we're at when we come to our text today. This is Genesis 28, 10 through 17. Jacob left Beersheba and went toward Haran. He reached a certain place and spent the night there because the sun had set. He took one of the stones from the place, put it there at his head, and lay down in that place. And he dreamed. A stairway was set on the ground with its top reaching the sky. God's angels were going up and down on it. The Lord was standing there beside him, saying, I am the Lord, the God of your father Abraham, and the God of Isaac. I will give you and your offspring the land on which you are lying. Your offspring will be like the dust of the earth, and you will spread out toward the west, the east, the north, and the south. All the peoples on earth will be blessed through you and your offspring. Look, I am with you and will watch over you wherever you go. I will bring you back to this land, for I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. As far as I know, it was the first time that God had appeared to Jacob. Why? Jacob doesn't know what's before him. The most important part of his life. The most dangerous part of his life. He's on the run. Going to a place he doesn't know. God appears to him. He sees a ladder with angels ascending and descending on it. Angels are ministers and protectors of God's people. It's a dream of that God has his angels among him. He didn't even know it. And yet, they're with him, protecting him. God is the God of comfort. He tells his people he's present with them. Jacob would know of his grandfather's story. He would know about Abraham. He would have heard of Isaac and all the stories that they've shared with him, and when God appeared to him and promised him these things. But now, God appears to him. You know, it's one thing when you hear someone else talking about God and how it's affected his life. But when God makes himself known to you, it's much different. Jacob, these promises belong to you. As much as I gave it to your father and to your grandfather, I'm giving it to you. But maybe the greatest part of the promise is this. Look, he says, look, I am with you and will watch over you wherever you go. I will bring you back to this land, for I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. God is present. God will watch over him. God will bring him back. God will not abandon him. God will keep his word. He will keep his promises to him. Life cannot be more chaotic for him. It can be more scary, more fearful. But here comes God. I am with you. When Jacob awoke from his sleep, he said, surely the Lord is in this place. And I did not know it. He was afraid and said, what an awesome place this is. This is none other than the house of God. This is the gate of heaven. Do you guys think or feel that God is far away? How often does it feel he's not there? What is he? In other words, does God's presence depend on your knowledge or how you're feeling? Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. I think at this point in Jacob's life, God couldn't have seemed further away. That's why he says, he's here, and I didn't even know it. God's closer than you think. Sometimes circumstances put so much pressure on us, and that we're also inside filled with anxiety, fear, you name it. Pressures from out, pressures within. So many questions going through our heads. In that moment, what a comfort to know that God is with you. Jacob, I'm with you. God knows what's going on with Jacob. God knows that Jacob just stole the blessing. God knows that Jacob's running for his life. God knows that he's 70 years old. God knows he's seeking a bride. He knows these things. Up to this point, Jacob's life is, at least what we have from this part of Scripture, he's not a good person. He's not someone we would consider a good person. Deceiving your own father to steal a blessing. It's wicked. And yet, in this moment of his life, God still appears to him. In his grace and his mercy, he tells Jacob that I'm with you. Why? God chose Jacob from the womb. God said, I will show mercy on him. I will show mercy. I'm going to show mercy on Jacob. This is Romans 8, 28 through 30. We know that all things work together for good for those who love God, who are called according to his purpose. For those who he foreknew, he also predestined. That's Jacob, right? God called him from the womb. He says the older will serve the younger. That is, Jacob is my heir. Right? God foreknew. God predestined. It says he also predestined him to be conformed to the image of his son. That God just doesn't choose people and predestine them. He does so to the end that he's going to make his people look like his son. We're going to see that we're going to have the pleasure over the next maybe month or two to look at Jacob's life. We're going to see something that God has predestined, God has chosen, and we're going to see God transform a wicked man into a righteous one. That's the amazing thing. We get to see the transformation of Jacob in the next couple of weeks. But listen further. So that he would be the firstborn among many brethren, speaking about Christ, and sisters. And those he predestined, he also called. And those he called, he also justified. And those he justified, he also glorified. This is what we're going to see in Jacob's life. We've seen that God's already called them. He's already predestined them from the womb. He's called them now. The first time he's appearing to him in this story right now. Next, he's going to justify him. That means he's going to declare him righteous. We're going to watch Jacob become a righteous man. And lastly, he's going to be glorified. And in the end, he is going to be a glorified man, a true son of God. But now listen to Paul's next question on this. This is 8:31. He says, what then are we to say about these things? If God is for us, who is against us? It's almost like Paul has Jacob in his mind when he's writing these things. That he sees a man that God has chosen, and he's going to be with him throughout his life. And the question is, who is against him? Who can touch him? So when Jacob needed him most, God made it clear that he's present with him. I'm with you. Who's against him? Who's against you, Jacob? And we'll see that Jacob's going to run into a few problems, especially with Laban, and yet God is still with him and blesses him through all of it. This is verse 18 through 22. Early in the morning, Jacob took the stone that was near his head and set it up as a marker. He poured oil on top of it and named the place Bethel, though previously the city was named Luz. Excuse me. Throughout the Bible, and especially in Genesis, we see that a marker or a pillar set up to commemorate an important event. The best example for us is, we have monuments, especially in Washington, D.C., right? Monuments for one thing or another. For our case, it's pictures. You want to capture that moment, right? You want to capture that memory. So you have pictures, so you could always look at it and refer to it. I remember that. I remember what happened. Tiffany kept a journal in Europe. We did this and this and that. She wanted to remember, so she could go back to it and relive those memories. Same thing with this. Jacob, this is an important event. I'm going to set this up and pour oil on it. And he renames the place Bethel. If you don't know already, Bethel means house of God. Beth, house, El, God. House of God. So Jacob uses his kind of rock/pillow, and he pours oil on it. This is what he could always come back to. This is where God appeared to me when I slept on top of this rock. Verse 20. Then Jacob made a vow: if God will be with me and watch over me during this journey I'm making, if he provides me with food to eat and clothing to wear, and if I return safely to my father's family, then the Lord will be my God. This stone that I've set up as a marker will be God's house, and I will give you 1/10 of all that you give me. Jacob makes a simple vow. If God keeps his word concerning me, if he keeps me, if he gives me food, if he gives me clothing, he brings me back safely, he's going to be my God. Not even that. The stone's going to be, I don't necessarily think it's God's house, but it's to be a place of worship for him. He's going to come back here. Not even that, he's going to give 1/10 of everything that God gives me. He's going to tithe. But this is how God works on our hearts. This is how men become believers. God shows his mercy and his grace. He chooses us before we even exist. It doesn't matter what we have done up to that point. When God's pleased to call us, he calls us. Shows mercy on us. Appears to us. Forgives us. And it's after that in my life, when I most know that, especially after sin, that when God forgives me, it makes me want to worship. I just want to sing. I want to sing Amazing Grace. Right? I want to be in the house of God. I want to hear his word. I want to hear about this God who forgives, this God who appears to me when I least deserve it, is when he seems to come to me most. That leads to worship. It leads to a thankful heart. You're willing to give after that. So today we've seen that Jacob's on the run from Esau. He's a liar. He's a wicked man. Not only that, he's getting older. He's on a mission to find a wife. Problem is, his future wife's 500 miles away, and he must go on foot. But also, on the other hand, we know that God has chosen Jacob from the womb. That God has given his word, his promise about Jacob. We also know that Isaac did not take back his blessing from Jacob, even though he stole it. God didn't take it back. Isaac didn't take it back. So the blessing still remains with him. And not even that, before Jacob leaves on this trip, Isaac blesses him again. He gives him the blessings of Abraham. So even after Jacob's treachery, Isaac still sees him as his heir. It's amazing. So we have two things at play here. Jacob's circumstances are as bad as they get. And actually we can say he deserves them, right? You steal that blessing, you expect your brother is going to want to kill you after that. So he brought it upon himself. But another thing at play here, so you got Jacob and his stupidity, his treachery, his wickedness, but then you have God's word on the other hand, that God has chosen this man to be his heir. That his blessings is going to be upon this man and his family. God's the one who's in control. Right? No matter what's thrown Jacob's way, no matter what he's done, God is the one behind all of it. God is the one who said, these things are going to happen, they're going to happen. And we see these things intersect in Jacob's dream. They intersect in Jacob's dream. And God makes it clear that he's going to bless him. He's going to be with him. He's going to keep him. He's going to bring him back to the land that he's going to own himself someday. Not even that, your kids, your children, your descendants will be as numerous as the stars of heaven, and they're going to own this land. Brings me back. Said, we're not. I mean, you can say I'm kind of speculating. We're not told about Jacob's thoughts, right? It doesn't say Jacob was. He does say later on that he was distressed and God appeared to me. So we know that much. But these are important things. These are life-shattering events that are happening to him. And that's when God appears to him. I almost think he's a man. We go back to the silly video we had at the beginning. A man about to be broken. Pressures from without. Pressures from within. How's he going to stand? How's he going to stand through all that? And that's when God appears to him. God, probably at his weakest moment, shows up to him and gives him the strength, the word, the truth that he needs. And that brings us to us. To you guys. What fears do you have? Are the fears that you have legitimate? The fears, the anxieties? Are they illegitimate? Who determines whether your fears and anxieties are legit or not? I think all these are important questions. I would say most fear, if not all fears and anxieties, are legitimate ones. I just think some maybe are a little more superficial than others, right? We have fear and anxiety over our appearance. Finances, children. In Jacob's case, none unknown. He doesn't know what the future is going to hold with him. Same with us. That causes us to lose sleep. We're afraid. Sometimes we lack confidence. You know, we have certain abilities, but we're not confident in them. Start a new job. Am I worthy of it? Fear of death. Death is real. This will be a point where we're not going to be breathing anymore. Then what? Many Christians around the world, they have to fear persecution. They don't know if someone's going to kick down their door, take them away at any moment. They don't know if their property is going to be taken away. They might have threats against them, threats against their children, family. How do you deal with those things? They're second-class citizens. They got the worst of jobs. We have the worries of following Christ. If I take my stand for Christ now, do I lose a friend? Do I lose my job? Do I lose my family? Again, there's Christians throughout the world. They become Christian, and they realize if I do, I lose everything that I know. Everything. I got to run. Who could here honestly say that they could do that? I think we have it so good in the United States, we could have both. But throughout history, you cannot have both. Some of our fears and anxieties come from Satan himself. the father of lies, right? He wants to deceive us, keep us in deception, keep us afraid. Some fear for reputation. You know, if I come out as a Christian, they're going to think I'm like this, right? I think one of the fears of modern day Christians is, I don't want to be labeled as that Christian, right? I'm a Christian, but I'm not that Christian. So what are your fears? What are the pressures in your life that cause you to break? Right? The list can be endless. Think about it. Some are easier answers. Some have an immediate answer. Some take a long time. I'll say most of the difficult ones take time. Some of these fears and anxieties we've held on for so long in our life, it's hard to leave with them. That's who we are. And they just want to cling to us, it seems. So what are some answers to these things? I think first and foremost, the most important thing is foundation. Right? This silly little video. Any building needs a good foundation, or else it's going to come down. What's the foundation that we have? Christ. A foundation of forgiveness. A foundation of reconciliation to a loving God. A foundation of we have the Holy Spirit. We have new life. We're new people. That affects the way we see things. That affects the way pressures upon us and how we let them bother us. It affects our heart. How we handle and process all these things. First, you must be cleansed. You must be cleansed. You must be reconciled to a loving Father. The foundation in Christ is He's defeated all these things. He's defeated Satan. He's defeated his lies. He's defeated sin. Anything, our own sins that cause so much anxiety and fear, anger, everything in us. Christ has defeated it. He has put that to death once and for all. That means something. It must mean something in our lives. Maybe most important, the foundation that we're adopted as sons. Sons and daughters of God. That's bizarre. But it's a fact. Sons and daughters. You guys have authority over this. You have authority over Satan and his lies. Authority over fear. We have another life after this. We have something to look forward to. We have hope. Brings me to the second thing. Truth is the greatest answer to many of our fears and anxieties. Jacob, at this time, has an unknown future before him. He was distressed, but he had the truth that God is present with him. God will keep him. The truth that God's going to bless him. God's going to bring him back. There's the truth that God is sovereign. That things that do happen to us are not outside of God's control. In fact, God's in control. God has brought those things upon us. Right? God is sovereign. He knows what's going on. He hears what's going on. That alone, just to know that fact. Like Jacob, what did he say? He was surprised. He was afraid. So, the Lord is in this place, and I didn't know. He was ignorant. But he had God's appearance, God's revealing himself to him, gave him the knowledge that God is present with him, and God will be present with him. Again, that means something, just to know that. changes the heart and the mind. Here's some more truth from Christ about some of our anxieties. This is Matthew 6:25-34. He said, "Therefore I tell you, don't worry about your life, what you'll eat or what you will drink, or about your body or what you'll wear. Isn't life more than food, and the body more than clothing? Consider the birds of the sky. They don't sow or reap or gather into barns, yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Aren't you worth more than they? Can any of you add 1 moment to his lifespan by worrying? Why do you worry about clothes? Observe how the wildflowers of the field grow. They don't labor or spin thread. Yet I tell you that not even Solomon in all his splendor was adorned like one of these. If that's how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and thrown in the furnace tomorrow, won't he do much more for you, you of little faith? So don't worry, saying what we will eat, or what we will drink, or what we will wear. For the Gentiles eagerly seek all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them. But seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be provided for you. Therefore don't worry about tomorrow, because tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own." Jesus getting across that God cares. God provides. God is sovereign. If God provides for what we would say worthless birds, for worthless grass, if God gives to those, how much more is he going to give to you? How much more is he going to give to his sons and daughters? Do you guys know that? Is what Jesus is saying. God will keep his people. So, why worry about superficial things? If God's going to provide these, don't worry about them. Not even that. It's not just not worrying about those things. What does Jesus say? You must be doing something else. You take away those things, but now pursue the kingdom of God. Seek the kingdom of God. Seek his righteousness. So to fix a lot of these things is for you to pursue God, to pursue what it is to be righteous. And just think how many of those things will just slowly fade away because you've set your priorities right. What are those things? When you realize that you're pleasing God with your life and what you're doing, you're pursuing with all that God has laid it down for you, has given a son for you, and you're pleasing him, you're going after him. Your priorities are straight, and those things do fade away. You don't worry about those things anymore. Those fears, those anxieties go away. Third thing you can do is Proverbs 12:25. Anxiety in a person's heart weighs it down, but a good word cheers it up. Hearing God's truth, hearing his word, we can make out that we have a Father like this, that we have a Son that would give his life for us, that we can be forgiven, that we're given God's Spirit, that he's with us as a church, as individuals. What an amazing blessing that is. That should cheer the heart up. But just as important is you guys speaking encouraging words to one another. You see your brother, your sister, they're down, and you speak to them. You encourage them. That cheers them up, gives them hope. Also, we have the presence of God. I've mentioned a number of times. What God told Jacob was, I am with you. Go throughout the Bible and see how many times God says, do not fear. That people in their circumstances, in their situations, their fear and anxieties, God appears to them and says, do not fear. And the very next thing he says, I am with you. Just the mere fact of God's presence should bring peace and comfort to a person's heart. Another name for the Holy Spirit is Comforter. I don't think that's any kind of mistake. We have God's Spirit with us. His presence is buried with us. Do not fear. I'm going to finish up with reading this psalm. It says, "Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His faithful love endures forever. Let the redeemed of the Lord proclaim that he has redeemed them from the power of the foe, and has gathered them from the lands, from the east and the west, and from the north and the south. Some wandered in the desolate wilderness, finding no way to a city where they could live. They were hungry and thirsty. Their spirits failed within them. Then they cried out to the Lord in their trouble. He rescued them from their distress. He led them by the right path, to go to a city where they could live. Let them give thanks to the Lord for his faithful love and his wondrous works for all humanity. For he has satisfied the thirsty and filled the hungry with good things. Others sat in darkness and gloom, prisoners in cruel chains, because they rebelled against the Lord's commands and despised the counsel of the Most High. He broke their spirits with hard labor. They stumbled, and there was no one to help. Then they cried out to the Lord in their trouble. He saved them from their distress. He brought them out of darkness and gloom and broke the chains apart. Let them give thanks to the Lord for his faithful love and his wondrous works for all humanity. For he has broken down the bronze gates and cut through the iron bars. Fools suffered affliction because of the rebellious ways of their iniquities. They loathed all food, and they came near the gates of death. Then they cried out to the Lord in their trouble, and he saved them from their distress. He sent his word and healed them. He rescued them from the pit. Let them give thanks to the Lord for his faithful love and his wondrous works for all humanity. Let them offer sacrifices of thanksgiving, announce his works with shouts of joy. Others went to sea in ships, conducted trade on the vast water. They saw the Lord's works, his wondrous works in the deep. He spoke and raised a stormy wind that stirred up the waves of the sea, rising up to the sky, sinking down to the depths. Their courage melting away in anguish. They reeled and staggered like a drunkard, and all their skill was useless. Then they cried out to the Lord in their trouble, and he brought them out of their distress. He stilled the storm to a whisper, and the waves of the sea were hushed. They rejoiced when the waves grew quiet. Then he guided them to the harbor they longed for. Let them give thanks to the Lord for his faithful love and his wondrous works for all humanity. Let them exalt him in the assembly of the people, and praise him in the council of the elders. He turns rivers into desert, springs into thirsty ground, and fruitful land into a salty wasteland. Because of the wickedness of his inhabitants, he turns a desert into a pool, dry land into springs. He causes the hungry to settle there, and they establish a city where they can live. They sow fields and plant vineyards and yield a fruitful harvest. He blesses them, and they multiply greatly. He does not let their livestock decrease. When they are diminished and are humbled by cruel oppression of sorrow, he pours contempt on nobles and makes them wander in a trackless wasteland. But he lifts the needy out of their suffering and makes their families multiply like flocks. The upright see it and rejoice, and all injustice shuts its mouth. Let whoever is wise pay attention to these things and consider the Lord's acts of faithful love. Let us pray. Our Father, we thank you that you are holy, but also that you are sovereign, you are in control. Lord, that you call us before we even existed, that you predestined us, and you call us, you come to us in the worst of circumstances. Troubles that we bring upon ourselves through our sin and our wickedness. And yet you're still good to us. You still call us. Your faithful love. And I pray that we know that you are present with us. No matter what pressures we have from without, those within, fears and anxieties, things that just depress us. Almost feel like they're going to break us. Lord, at those times, Lord, I pray that we realize that you are faithful in your love. Lord, that you have a word concerning us, that you will watch over us, you will not abandon us, that you are with us always to the end. And maybe you hold on to that, maybe cling to that. Lord, we don't see that any clearer other than the cross. That your love is so great for sinners that you will send your Son in our place. Take upon himself what we deserve. that we may know you, that we may be reconciled to you, that we may be forgiven, that we may have your presence with us. What a privilege and a blessing, Lord. That truth that who you are, that you love us, and that you will keep us to the end. May that strengthen our hearts. Lord, I pray that it may remove the fear and anxiety that we have in the world. Lord, to know that your Son has conquered all, and he is with us day in and day out. We pray these things in your Son's name. Christ Jesus, amen.